And Sharif, the one country, as we were mentioning, the Geneva Conventions literally has it in it that all signatories to it are obligated to prevent genocide, to intervene to prevent genocide. The only country doing it is the Houthi-led government in Yemen. Can you talk a little bit about the strike that we witnessed recently on journalists in Yemen and what we know about it so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually funeral services held today in Sana'a for as many as 32 Yemeni journalists who were killed in an Israeli airstrike last week. This was a series of strikes that hit several areas in Sana'a, residential areas, a military headquarters, a fuel station, but also a media center housing the headquarters of 2 newspapers. Israeli officials basically admitted to this. They said that they struck a building they referred to as the Houthis' military public relations headquarters. Now, official statements from Ansar Allah have said that 32 journalists were killed. They published photos of them as well. If that is the case, this would make it one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest, strike on journalists in modern history. And it would continue Israel's unprecedented targeting of journalists in Gaza, where at least over 250 have been killed, including just 3 journalists the other day, by the way, one of which was in Gaza City and 2, I think, in other areas. But those attacks on Sana'a was only the latest in a series of escalating bombings targeting Yemen. In late August, Israel carried out also a series of coordinated strikes that killed numerous senior members of the Houthi-led government that controls the region, in the northern region, including the prime minister and 9 cabinet members. Now, when we say prime minister, I think these officials are largely just figureheads without any real power. But it was an escalation by Israel to openly target civilian members of the Houthi government, even though it probably won't significantly affect the Houthis' military capability. And just today, and it's probably going to happen within a couple of hours, the Israeli military spokesperson said, we are going to bomb Hodeidah, the port city, where most of the humanitarian aid, and Yemen relies extremely heavily on humanitarian aid for millions of impoverished Yemenis to survive, and they're going to bomb this port as well. So these escalations continue, but really the strike that if 32 journalists have been killed in a single strike, I can't think of a single strike in recent history.
I think prior to this, I believe that the single deadliest strike on media workers would have been the U.S.-led NATO bombing of Radio Television Serbia in Belgrade in April of 1999, and that killed 16 media workers. Some of them were like makeup artists, et cetera. But the U.S. also has really been one of the leading so-called democracies in the world to normalize the killing of journalists. Remember, too, if you just even talk exclusively about Al Jazeera, the United States bombed Al Jazeera's Baghdad office early on in the U.S. invasion, killed its correspondent, Tariq Ayoub, who, by the way, was Palestinian. They bombed the Sheraton Hotel in Baghdad, killing a Reuters cameraman, as well as a Spanish cameraman, Jose Cuso. In that strike, they bombed the Sheraton Hotel in Basra, where Al Jazeera journalists were the only guests. They bombed Al Jazeera's offices. This is all the United States, by the way. Bombed Al Jazeera's offices in Afghanistan soon after the U.S. launched its so-called war on terror. The U.S. Kidnapped and imprisoned Sami al-Hajj at Guantanamo, an Al Jazeera cameraman. And the U.S. has participated in the demonizing of journalists who are not telling the official agenda as not real journalists. And so, when we, and also some press freedom organizations have gotten into the weeds about, well, is this person really a journalist? these Palestinians and now Yemenis who are being targeted, I don't think anybody from these Western organizations have any business questioning whether or not they're journalists. When you look at, for instance, the former Israeli soldiers and intelligence officers who are working at U.S. media organizations, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or it's Axios or now CNN, has just hired an Israeli journalist who talks about herself as a proud, former soldier, who says she has a weak spot for tanks, who was praising Israeli military units as they went in to take the Philadelphia corridor in Gaza. She's now a senior correspondent for CNN. Who are these people to pretend as though they're the arbiters of who's a real journalist and who's not a real journalist? I mean, so the U.S. news organizations are filled with former spies, retired generals, people who sit on boards of defense companies and make money off of every weapon strike that happens, whether it's Israel or another country. I mean, it's sickening to watch this dehumanization, including by some press freedom organizations that say, well, we need to dig a little bit deeper. But if an American gets taken by Putin, everyone has the ribbon on their Twitter profile. Meanwhile, we've watched almost 300 of our colleagues get mass murdered with U.S. weapons in Gaza. It's sickening.